Hi Chan, welcome back to another live session. So today's World Youth Skill Day and we have a special guest with us, Mr. Chintan Daiya. Mr. Daiya is the chief expert in plumbing and heating at World Skill and the author of the book Plumb for Jan, which aims to improve plumbing and sanitation in India. So on this occasion, Sir will be sharing valuable insights on how practical skills can be integrated into vocational education. If any of you have any question, feel free to ask in the live chat without any hesitation. And we sincerely thank you, sir, for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ankit. It's a pleasure, and first I want to congratulate Team Narayan Dojo for organizing such a wonderful forum and bringing together, such a great dissemination of knowledge. And before I start, as you rightly mentioned, today is the World Youth Skill Day. So, seeing you and your youthful team, I heartily want to wish you all a very happy World Youth Skills Day, and to all the people who have joined in who may not be as youthful, but age is just a number. So like me, probably I'm not a youth, but I like to consider myself a youth. So just to give you a background about the World Youth Skill Day, it was declared by the UN General Assembly in 2014 um, for empowerment of the youth, for basically bringing out the skills for employment, for empowering decent workmanship and entrepreneurship for all the youth throughout the world. So that's how the World Youth Skill Day came into the picture. And as you mentioned, that I'm also a part of World Skills. World Skills looks at the World Youth Skills Day as a very important day, and a lot of activities and a lot of initiatives take place today, which is July the 15th.
Okay, so can I start the question answering?
Yes, sure, please. I'm all raring to go. Yeah.
Okay. So my first question is, as someone with extensive experience in the public health engineering industry, how do you see the integration of STEM education with vocational education, benefiting the plumbing and heating sector?
So basically, if you look at it, from what I understand, my inference of STEM education really is, when we look at it from a different aspect of science, technology, engineering, and um, sorry, when we look at it from a perspective of all these four aspects of, science, technology, and engineering, with all those things, vocational education is something where all of these factors come together into play, where, it's not only science, but also the scientific knowledge, the scientific analogy, and also the analysis which takes place for applying it to different vocational skills, right? Of course, we'll get more deeper when we go ahead into my particular sector. But technology needs to be always involved in all of these vocational educations, all of the vocational skills that are required in the industry, all different industries. When you talk about a white collar job or a blue collar job, it segregates the thought process. But when you look at vocational education and the vocational skills, all of these four factors of STEM come into the play, where science is involved, where the thought process of thinking about thinking in a way a scientist does, or involving technologies, because technology is always evolving constantly, and of course engineering is always there, and many of the vocational skills, especially from the sector which I come from, the construction sector, involves a lot of mathematics as well. There's a lot of calculation in play and a lot of geometry, and especially in plumbing, when we look at it, there's also hydraulics involved. So that's how vocational education implements a lot of STEM, even without um, without consciously knowing that there is STEM education at play while you're undergoing other vocational education as well.
Okay. So my next question is, could you share some real life examples where STEM education has been successfully integrated with vocational training to
Right.
improve plumbing and heating practices or other skills?
Right. So, in most of the skills now, let's take a little deep dive into plumbing and heating specifically where I'm involved. Being the fourth generation in a family involved in this, for me, of course, it was quite natural that I had to get into plumbing itself. But then, when you think about it, the implementation of STEM, the STEM education in plumbing specifically is that there's again, the way I explained the earlier question is a lot of science is involved. The science of hydraulics, the science of fluid mechanics, how the water goes in. There's not only the science of, the hydraulics and water fluid mechanics or the how the water flows, but also at the same time, the knowledge of sanitation, which is very important in today's world, is also vital because if you do not have a good plumber, if you do not have a good plumbing professional, your sanitation is affected. There was a report released some time ago by the UN and also by the WHO, where it showed the impact of sanitation on normal education also. So, I have twin daughters, and as a father, I would not like my children, my girls, to go to a school which does not have proper sanitation facilities. Just think about it that way. So the moment these kind of problems are arising in many developing countries throughout the world, where people do not have adequate sanitation facilities. There are a lot of um, infant deaths or children who succumb to sanitation-related problems and are not able to survive because they do not have an accessible toilet or a proper facility where they can use the sanitation. And so that is a very important aspect. Not to offend any profession, but I strongly believe in the statement when we say prevention is better than cure, right? We all have heard that statement, prevention is better than cure. So what really happens is, um, I'll give you an example of one of the programs I had been part of where there were around 8,000 plumbers gathered from the state of Gujarat. And there I asked all of them that how many of you are proud to be a plumber? And of course, it was a herd mentality. So everybody raised their hand. Yes, we are very proud to be plumbers and everything. So I asked them a question. Okay, how many of you would like your children to become plumbers? And of course, there are some smart people always in the crowd. So, two or three people just raised their hand. So imagine out of those 8,000 people, there were only two or three people who really wanted their children to pursue their profession of plumbing, and the others probably wanted them to become doctors or engineers or scientists or get into all those, lucrative fields that we call them as. So I asked them, why is that thought process? So I give them an example that, okay, again, I told them the statement of prevention being better than cure. I told them that, what, a doctor, right? A doctor really cures you all the time. Whenever you have a sickness, whenever you're ailment, you got a disease or something of that sort, you go to your doctor. He prescribes you those medications and cures you. He does not really prevent. Who is the guy who prevents those illnesses from happening? It's the plumber. Because the fact is that in on this planet, there are more than 90 to 92% illnesses which are waterborne, directly or indirectly. So the moment you do not have proper water facilities or sanitation facilities, you can become a victim to these 92% diseases or ailments. And so a plumber, if he does a good plumbing job, he provides a good sanitation facility, these 92% diseases or ailments are avoided. So that makes prevention better than cure. And so everybody is happy. I said, okay, now what do you think? Isn't a plumber better than a doctor? And they're like, yeah, proud. They got a wide chest now that, okay, we're better than doctors. And then I asked them a simple question that what does it take to become a doctor really? You want to become a medical doctor, you want to do your MBBS or, you want to do your MD. For MBBS, obviously, you must be knowing that it takes like 5 to 6 years of extensive hard work of studying and everything. and another few years to become an MD, a specialist in something. And what does it take to become a plumber in the country? Same. Anybody just who can pick up a spanner or a screwdriver can call himself a plumber. So that's not fair, right? Really. How can you be better than some other profession without going to the proper formal education? So that's where I bring it back to the fact that, a lot of education is to be involved in vocational education really becomes important when you want to implement it. And the culmination of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics makes a good plumber really. So that's what I really mean to say in a nutshell. Without, again, I apologize if some doctor takes offense to what I just said, but that's what the fact is.
Yep. So come to the next question. So what specific skills and knowledge should a student acquire through the combined approach of STEM education and vocational training to excel in the field of public health engineering?
Right. So specifically, people call plumbing as public health engineering, and as we just spoke, that it involves the importance of maintaining the public health. You must have seen posters which are from the past that the plumber protects the health of the nation. So that's making it very specifically clear that a plumber is very specifically involved in public health engineering, public health basically. And when it comes to public health engineering, there you immediately have your E standing out in STEM, right? That's an engineering in itself, making sure that you are providing safe, potable water and making sure that the unsafe used water is disposed of in a very sanitary manner. The kind of stuff that one person needs to be very aware of when getting into plumbing is the knowledge that how do you design systems, because a plumber basically, when I said an unskilled or an unqualified plumber, all he does is, he or she, I do not mean to be gender specific here because we have a lot of females also coming into the plumbing industry now. What I need to say is, so he or she, when is unskilled or unqualified, only knows to install. Probably maybe they have learned it from the ustad culture, which has been going on in our country since a long time. Some person learned it from somebody, he taught it to his chela, and that chela went ahead and further taught it to his chela. So the ustad culture has been going on for a while. And my dad always keeps telling the story, so I'll quote him here. So there's a story about a newly married girl. She goes to her house, which is her in-law's place, and her mother-in-law. The Indian culture, we always find the mother-in-law to be the difficult person to tackle for a woman. So the mother-in-law asks her daughter-in-law that do you know how to cook fish? And she says, yes, I make wonderful fish masala, and I can make that for you. He says, okay, here's the fish and here's all the ingredients in the kitchen. Why don't you go and cook it? So she makes the fish, she prepares all the ingredients properly. She chops off the head, chops off the tail, puts the fish in the frying pan, makes it wonderful. The mother-in-law tastes it and she's like flabbergasted. She's like, wow, this is the best fish that I've ever had in my life. But why did you cut off the head and why did you chop off the tail, really? He says, I really don't know. That's the way my mom taught me. Okay, so why don't you go and find out from your mom why this particular, procedure had to be done? So that girl goes back to her mom and asks her, Mom, why did we do this specifically? She says, I do not know. My mother taught me that way. So she goes back to her grandmother to ask that, why do we do that? He says, you know what? Even my mother taught me that way, that you have to chop off the head and the tail. So finding out through generations, she eventually came to know that the very first person who did this had a small frying pan, probably of 6-inch diameter or something, and she could not fit the whole fish in the frying pan, so she had to chop off the head and the tail. But then now, since the times had changed, that culture kept on going on without being questioned why. So what has been happening again in this Ustad culture also is that people just go on doing what is being taught to them by their Ustad. So many times as a consultant, when I visit my construction site and I ask my plumber that, you know what, why have you done this specifically? Because I do not know. We've been doing it all this way. I say, you know what, probably what you've done is wrong and there are chances that leakage may happen. नहीं नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता है हम तो बहुत साल से ऐसे ही करते आ रहे हैं we've been doing this same thing for so many years and there have been no leakages. So that's the justification most of the times that we get from the unskilled or unqualified sector is that because it has been going on all these years and nothing wrong has happened, it makes it right. So that is the very first thought process that people have to come up with is that you need to get out of that thought process. You need to understand that there is a formal method, there is a formal educational training which you need to undergo, and that's when you can know what is right and what is wrong. So just to give you a technical example, I do not know how many people will understand that, but we have a piping material known as CPVC or UPVC. We have two different piping materials, and the piping jointing is the pipe jointing is done using a solvent cement. It's like a solvent. You apply it on the pipe and the fitting, you push it in, and it holds. Most of the plumbers in the country who are unskilled or unqualified, they would think that it's a glue, and they apply more of it. So what eventually happens because they apply a lot of solvent, it is a solvent. So if you're understanding the technical term, a solvent is something which makes something soluble. The more solvent you apply, what is happening is eventually you're creating an inferior joint. But because they have learned from their ustad, correct, apply more glue, it will be better, it will give a good joint. It is not probably, like a glue which will create that kind of a joint. And so many a times these thought processes need to be broken from the way that they have been doing things. Technology, you see, even when it comes to technology in the industry, many a times what happens is, as I said, what does it take to become a plumber in the country? In the past, most of the people would just buy a pipe wrench and a screwdriver and become a plumber. But to become a plumber, you need to have the knowledge of all the technology that is available. There are many different piping materials. There are different jointing methods which require different tools, which have different safety parameters to be followed. If you have not gone through the formal education of public health, you would not know what are the safety parameters, what is the right process. So again, as I spoke about CPVC and UPVC, there's another material known as polypropylene random. So this PPR pipes, as we call them, usually require heating to be done. The fitting and the pipe has to be heated for a certain amount of time at a certain temperature in a dust-free environment. Unfortunately, what happens in most of the cases, the plumber has to procure that specific tool for heating because all he has is a spanner and a screwdriver. So he first needs to know how to use that tool. Once he learns how to use that tool, he does not take into consideration things like the heating temperature, the kind of duration that is needed to heat it, or the kind of clean environment that is required to maintain that, leak-free joint. And there goes your technology out of the door because he has not had a formal education in that. Then comes the engineering part. In engineering, it really becomes very important because we do not expect all the plumbers to be hydraulic engineers per se. Because of course, if you undergo the formal education, you would get the tip of the iceberg for sure. And they do not even know the tip of the iceberg. They just think, okay, chalo, wo ice chota sa tube hai. That is what plumbing is all about. To give you an example. So when it comes to engineering, they need to know how sizings are done. Most of the times, the biggest common malpractice that happens in our country is they think the bigger size is a better size. If you use your, of course, I'm sure you use a washroom every day. Everybody uses a toilet every day. Every normal human being that I know uses a toilet or a washroom. And the faucet and everything that you see, all your fixtures that you have in your washroom are of a standard diameter. They're always, in most cases, they're just half an inch diameter or a 15 diameter. The, the thought process, the idea that most of these unscrupulous, uh, I would not even call them plumbers, the unscrupulous people who try to sell or rather oversell the product, they will say, you know what, don't go for 15 go for 20 or go for 25 pipe within your washroom or the toilet. That will be better. They just don't realize the fact that the water which is coming out of the faucet is going to come out of 15 and not a larger diameter. They succumb to sometimes the malpractices which are pushed by certain wrong industry partners. Is they say, oversell it, you'll get probably you'll sell more product and you'll get higher, benefits out of that. So that's when they also need to learn the engineering part that do I really need to go for a larger diameter? Does that diameter impact the discharge or the pressure which is coming out of the line? So that's very important. And mathematics, in my opinion, plays a very, very important role when it comes to a plumbing professional, because it makes it even more sustainable. Many times I've seen what they do is they'll just, of course, most of the pipelines that we get in the industry are at standard lengths. They're usually 3 meters or 6 meters of those lengths. At times, I've seen situations where people end up over ordering because they do not know how much pipe has to go into the fitting. And there's a mantra which I always train my students with, is that measure twice, cut once. That's a very important aspect when it comes to mathematical part in PAT, is because when we're looking at an environmental aspect or a sustainable aspect, we also need to make sure that we do not generate a lot of waste. Because if you're going to make, you're going to make mistakes in your length, you're going to cut more pipe, you'll realize, oh, this is wrong. I need to make another length. I need to cut it again. So what you'll do is that waste piece is thrown out. So that kind of answers your question in mathematics as well.
Yeah, thank you. So the next question is, how can the integration of STEM education and vocational training contribute to the development and implementation of cleaner and greener solutions in the plumbing and heating industry?
Right. So having cleaner and greener solutions, really speaking, this reminds me of a conversation I was having with my friend Grant Stewart, who is from Australia, who also heads an organization known as IWISH that does a lot of philanthropical work throughout the world for plumbing. And I was talking to him about an initiative which I was a part of some time ago, known as Green Plumbers. So in Green Plumbers, the program was we used to concentrate more on the plumbing practices where we can make it more sustainable and make it more eco-friendly. So Grant, told me, what? Why do you think that plumbing needs to become greener? If you're doing good plumbing in itself, it is green. If you're, as I just gave you an example, if you go for a larger diameter of pipe, the impact, what happens is, as throughout the system, if you're going for larger diameters, what happens is you eventually run more pumping systems to, generate that kind of discharge and that kind of pressure. Sometimes you must have, gone to a particular washroom or a toilet or some place, yeah, or maybe you may even remember the scene from Mr. Bean. He opens a faucet in the wash basin and all the water gushes out and he's all wet, and it kind of looks funny then. And sometimes it can be embarrassing for people also that, you're probably in a conference, you go into your hotel lobby and use the faucet and you're all wet, and then you go back in your conference looking all wet. It kind of looks embarrassing. But at the same time, what is happening is people need to realize the wrong kind of pressure has been provided to that faucet. It should not have had that much pressure in the first place. Um, it could not only be an embarrassing situation, it could also be a health hazard. Sometimes it could cause injury. Because in countries like India, where we use fixtures like ablution faucet, the hand shower, the health faucet, what we call as, if you use it on a sensitive part at a very high pressure, you can imagine the kind of injury that a person can sustain. So there comes the part of being sustainable. And the moment you have proper flow rates, you have your proper energy consumption, plumbing itself in itself becomes sustainable. Yes, there are also aspects, as in, many a times we've seen in our World Skills competitions also, that for the competition we had to order a particular material from some different country, and it has to be flown in all the way. So it is not only the material that is being provided to you, which is not locally sourced. It is being flown from 1,000 miles away and brought to you for the kind of installation. So I personally feel it is always better to be more, you're consuming more of your carbon credit importing a product. I'm not against import, so don't get me wrong in that. But what is, I personally am a big fan of the Make in India initiative. So as long as you can source something locally, it is always it's reducing your carbon footprint as well. So, and India is such a big country, and we have everything available in the country. India is such a big market. We have everything available here. So why not use what is Indian? And so that's how. Again, concluding this question, I would quote Grant Stewart: as long as it is good plumbing, it is always green. You really do not need to worry. If you're doing a good plumbing job, you are doing a sustainable job.
The next one is, as the chief expert in plumbing and heating at World Skill Competition, what insight can you provide on the importance of integrating STEM education with vocational training for aspiring professionals in the field?
Right. So see, world skills, when I talk about world skills, it's a different league in itself. What world skills does, while people may think that, it's the hunt for the best of the best in the whole world, that is definitely one of the aspects, yes. But also at world skills, it has a fact that you need to be, it is the whole idea is that the global village has to upgrade its skills. So today, when I go to world skills, the whole idea is that um, there's a huge exchange of knowledge. During the competition, of course, the competitors are competing within themselves and they are competitors within the ring, if I would put it that way, like a boxing ring, and they are competitors there. But once the competition is over, beyond those hours, the kind of community, the kind of fraternity that is there is exemplary. You will find that people are all like-minded. They want to improve the particular skill that they are in, and so in plumbing, I always call my world skills plumbing as a family. It's my world skills plumbing family there. So the kind of knowledge that we share is amazing. And so the implementation of STEM education when it comes to world skills is that um, it involves a lot of thought processes. It involves a lot of logical thinking, and it not only involves that, it also is the test of human endurance. You can imagine you have the whole load of your country, you have the dreams of your country, you have the dreams of your family, you have the dreams of your community, that they want you to excel in world skills and bring back a medal for your country or your community. And that is when the importance of implementing STEM becomes very, very vital, because the last few candidates that we had to literally go to microscopic levels to understand what is scientifically done. So just to give you an example, we need to do a certain type of copper pipe soldering as well. So the jointing that is done in copper pipe is done using soldering. And the soldering that is done, the kind of assessment that is done at World Skills requires a perfect quality of soldering. And every joint that is assessed during these competitions has, four categories, four ratings basically. If you look at it that way, it's like star rating. If you look at reviews and everything online these days, everything has a star rating. And so these kind of assessments involve that kind of rating system. So 0 being not good, 1 being decent, 2 being good, and 4 being excellent. So sorry, 0, 1, 2, and 3, not 4. Sorry, let me correct that. So 0 being not meeting industry standards and not meeting the quality requirements. 1 is a decent quality, 2 is a good one, and 3 is the excellent one. And we literally used to keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again to reach a level where we thought, okay, now this looks like a 3. So because when you think that it looks like a 3, possibility is that there are many developed nations and many countries who have been doing this for years over years. They may not think that 3 is good enough. They may even think it's a 2. So that's how, the kind of
Right.
integration is required when it comes to microscopic understanding of these integrities.
Okay. So, what challenges do you foresee in implementing the integration of STEM education and vocational training? And how can they be overcome to ensure its success?
See, the biggest challenge that I see in implementing STEM education in vocational background, especially when it comes to plumbing and heating, is the very first thing is that we need to change the people's mindset. The biggest problem that I see in there are very few countries in the world where I've seen that people look up to plumbing. And my personal example is when I was getting into plumbing, some of my friends were uh, probably pursuing IT, someone was doing computer sciences, someone was into instrumentation, someone was into civil engineering, and they were like, "You're going to get into plumbing as a career?" really really want to do plumbing. And so that's the biggest, the social taboo that is associated with the word itself. When you say plumbing, people are like, what are you talking about? Is that even a profession? And as I said, I gave you an example of those more than 8,000 plumbers sitting in the crowd. Many of them did not even want their children to get into plumbing. Uh, I'll give you an example. When I got into the industry, it, it sounds like it was a long time ago, probably 27, 28 years ago. I'm not that old. But when I got into the industry, the average age of the plumbers that I used to work with was within the range of 20 to 30. And they were good, skilled plumber. I would not call them qualified, but they were skilled. They had the skill, they had the caliber to do the job. They did a good job. Today, over a period of time, what has happened is the if you see the average age of a construction industry worker, you will find that they are not within the range of 20 to 30. It has moved to 30 to 40 now. Good skilled construction workers. You will of course find younger people as well, but I'm not trying to demean the youth here because it's definitely World Youth Skills Day, and I do not want to do that. But what has over a period of time happened is that the younger generation has moved out a little bit from vocational skills. Some of the, especially construction industry, when I'm talking about that, and the domino effect is such that as the generation is growing older and older, the knowledge that is being passed down is not adequate enough for that small age group, which is now aspiring to get into the construction industry or plumbing industry specifically. So those are the biggest challenges I face. But you know what? There's that. It sounds very doom and gloom, but the Ministry of Skill and Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, the National Skills Development Corporation, and the sector skill councils like Water Management and Plumbing Skill Council are doing a wonderful job. They're putting in all that they can to make sure that more and more youth get involved, more and more youth get the kind of training that is required to get into this. So while there are challenges, there are there are agencies, there's the government trying to put in a big fight against these challenges as well.
The next one is, are there any specific initiatives or programs that you believe have been particularly effective in promoting the
Yes,
integration of
yes. In fact,
STEM and vocational education?
yes, exactly. So that's what I was just, good you brought that up and you let me talk about it in detail. So there are, as I said, the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and the NSDC has formulated all of these sector skill councils for all different sectors. And as I was talking about the Water Management and Plumbing Sector Skill Council, which was the agency which actually, approached me and nominated me to be an expert, and I'm always grateful to them for this. There are these agencies which work closely with NCVT to formulate the program outlines for people. They formulate programs for plumbers general. What is the qualification pack? There are national occupational standards generated by the Sector Skill Council and vetted by the NCVT, which is the apex vocational education authority in the country. Like you have the NCRT for schools, for CBSE and ICSE. So there's the NCVT, which does this wonderful job of making sure all these programs are made available to the people in the industry. And it's a very what can I say? It's a very stringent and democratic process in the same at the same time, because they make sure that the sector skill council, which is attached to the industry, uh, you know, um, cooks up a wonderful program to be presented to the people. But at the same time, they also make sure they approach people from the industry specific to the particular program and make sure that this program is really valid and required in the industry. So, say for example, if they create different job roles. There's a plumbing, there's a plumber general, there's a plumbing supervisor, you have a plumbing sales technician, and all of these programs, while they are made, they're also checked with the industry that is there a requirement of these kind of people in the industry. And once the industry gives a green signal, that is when the the apex body allows it to be rolled out in the industry.
Okay. So lastly, my question is, what advice would you give to students and aspiring professionals who want to pursue a career in plumbing and heating, emphasizing the value of a STEM education with vocational training?
Right. See, the biggest advice that I would like to give, of course, I'm not a very big sage to give some very sage advice, not some muni or something of that sort. But sorry, excuse me. But I've heard examples with, I was closely involved with an organization known as Protham Education, Protham Education, Pratham Arora Center for Excellence, basically that space, and they're into a lot of vocational skills. And what these people do is they actually go out into the rural part of the country and aspire the youth to get into vocational skills. We've had situations where people are like, oh, why do I need to get into plumbing? As I said, there's always a social taboo attached. And I was talking to one of these rural students once upon a time who had gotten into plumbing, and I was congratulating him about the fact that, you know what, you selected a very wonderful profession. And whenever I'm talking to all of these professionals, I always, all of these youth and all of the people who get into plumbing, the very first question I always ask them is, why did you get into plumbing? Sometimes I've had some, detective answers that, oh, because I did not get any other opportunity in life, I got into plumbing. But then most of the times I've had very interesting answers also. Recently, I was involved in the Global Impact Challenge with World Skills, where I visited Uganda for mentoring their training program. There too, I asked them that, why did you get into plumbing? And some people said that, in our country, we have a lot of water scarcity. Someone said that because water is a very very valuable resource, we want to save it. But one answer which I had got from this particular boy which I was talking about, he told me that I got into plumbing because at first I was thinking that I'll probably get into, become a driver. I learn to drive a car and I'll probably drive an Ola or Uber. Again, no offense to any company or any profession, but that's what he said. And I told him, what would you have to invest to become a driver of a cab, of this cab company? And he's like, I need to learn driving, and probably over a period of time, I could own my own car. I could have my own car, and I would drive that. So that sets my career. And I'm like, okay. And where do you see yourself 15 years down the line or 20 years down the line? Would you have become the owner of a fleet company, or the owner of, some travel agency where you have like 50 or 20, 50 or 100 cars which you can buy? So I do not think so. And that's what exactly the boy said. That was my thought process, that if I keep driving a cab, I will keep driving a cab all my life, possibly, or maybe I might own two cars at the most, or three cars at the most, but that's about it. But when I get into a vocational skill like plumbing or something, there will be no end to it. Over a period of time, I can set up my own team. I can take up my own personal contracts. I can keep on enhancing my knowledge. I can keep on enhancing my technological know-how. I can learn new techniques over a period of time, because the construction industry is so dynamic. It's constantly evolving, and the plumbing sector, especially in the construction industry, is the most innovative, because there's new products coming in all the time. People want a certain kind of a lifestyle. People are moving on to greener methods. So there's so much which I could have learned. I'm going to learn in the plumbing industry, and that is why I chose plumbing over any other profession. So that's exactly what advice I would like to give people also today. That while it sounds, it looks very, um, people do not look up to it, but over a period of time, things have changed since the time that I got into the industry, and the times that today we are going through. People really do not look at different professions, in a demeaning manner or something. And what better than being a preventer than a curer, right? So you have the power to prevent, you have the power to protect the health of the nation. So grab it, and you can also, if you're in the age category, you are also more than welcome to participate in the competitions that will soon take place throughout the country. and you may possibly be one of the champions representing India in World Skills soon at France Lyon in September 2024.
Okay, so lastly, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Chintan sir for his valuable insights and expertise shared with us during the session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and contributing to World Youth Skill Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankit. And again, happy World Youth Skills Day. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.